I sit at the Thanksgiving table, staring at the gravy congealing on my plate as Victoria Hartwell's words echo in my ears. It's just that some of us weren't born with silver spoons, dear. It must be so difficult shopping on a budget. The room falls silent, her words hanging in the air like a slap across my face. My husband's family stares, waiting for my reaction, but they don't know what I know. They don't know that tomorrow, I'll be signing the papers for the historic Victorian mansion on Maple Hill, the same one Victoria has coveted for 20 years. The same one she lost to me in a bidding war she doesn't even know I started. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. More turkey, Olivia? Victoria slides the platter toward me, her diamond bracelet catching the light, her smile not quite reaching her eyes. I've been married to her son, Marcus, for 3 years, but to Victoria, I'll always be the girl from the wrong side of town who somehow tricked her precious boy into marriage. The Hartwell family Thanksgiving is a picture of New England perfection, crystal glasses, heirloom china, and conversation that floats between golf memberships and summer homes. Victoria presides over it all from the head of the table, her silver-streaked auburn hair swept into an elegant updo, her cashmere sweater probably worth more than my first car. At least, that's what she thinks. Thank you, I say, keeping my voice steady as I accept the platter. I can feel Marcus tense beside me, his eyes fixed on his plate. He never defends me. Not once in 3 years has he stood up to his mother. When she makes these little digs about my supposedly humble background. Olivia brought dessert, Marcus offers weakly, attempting to change the subject. Victoria's perfectly lined lips curl slightly. How domestic. We usually have our desserts catered from Bellamy's, but I'm sure yours will be interesting. Across the table, Marcus's sister Charlotte smirks behind her wine glass. His brother Daniel shifts uncomfortably, his wife Meredith suddenly very interested in rearranging her silverware. The tension is thick enough to cut with the silver cake knife that Victoria made sure to mention was a gift from the governor. Actually, I smile, I did pick something up from that new French pâtisserie downtown. The chef trained under Pierre Herme in Paris. The name drop lands with precision. I know Victoria tried to get reservations for her garden club luncheon there last month and was denied. Victoria blinks, momentarily thrown off balance. Well, isn't that nice? Though I'm surprised you could afford it on your, what is it you do again? Administrative assistant? Marketing director, I correct her, for the 12th time. Not that it matters to Victoria. In her world, unless you're born into money or marry significantly up, you're nobody. And despite my 6-figure salary, she's decided I'm firmly in the nobody category. Right, of course, Victoria waves dismissively. Though I imagine that doesn't leave much room for savings. Marcus always had such expensive tastes, even as a child. I hope you're managing to keep up. The table falls silent. Again. Charlotte looks positively gleeful at my public humiliation. Daniel stares intently at his cranberry sauce. Marcus clears his throat but says nothing, and my patience finally snaps. We manage just fine, Victoria. Thank you for your concern. The words come out sharper than I intended, and Victoria's eyes narrow slightly. She's won this round, and she knows it. Showing emotion means she's gotten to me. Victoria smooths her linen napkin across her lap. I only mention it because we care, dear. Not everyone understands the pressure of maintaining appearances in certain circles. The charity gala season is coming up, and those tickets aren't cheap. We Hartwells have a reputation to uphold. There it is again. We Hartwells. Not including me. Never including me. I think we can handle a few charity tickets, I say, forcing a smile that doesn't reach my eyes. Of course you can, Victoria replies, her voice dripping with condescension. Though I noticed your shoes from last year's cancer benefit were. Well, let's just say they weren't Louboutins. Charlotte snickers, not even trying to hide it this time. Mom, stop. Not everyone can afford designer labels. Her fake concern is worse than Victoria's open disdain. I take a slow sip of water. Buying time, letting the anger and humiliation wash over me without showing it on my face. 3 years of these subtle jabs, these calculated comments designed to remind me of my place, beneath them, always beneath them. What they don't know is that tomorrow at 9 a.m., I'll be meeting with Jonathan Werner, the real estate agent handling the sale of Oakwood Manor, the historic Victorian estate that Victoria has been trying to purchase for 2 decades. The house that once belonged to her childhood friend whose family fell on hard times. The house she's mentioned at every family gathering as her someday home. The house that, as of tomorrow, will belong to me. Speaking of properties, Victoria segues smoothly, setting down her fork with practiced elegance. I heard the Petersons finally decided to sell Oakwood. Such a shame about their financial troubles. I've already put in an offer, of course. It's been my dream home since I was a girl. She smiles, satisfied with herself. I'll be hosting next year's Thanksgiving there, God willing. Marcus perks up. That's great news, Mom. You've wanted that place forever. Indeed, Victoria preens. Some things are worth waiting for. And some of us have the means to actually acquire the finer things in life. Her eyes slide meaningfully toward me. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel, it means a lot to us. Now back to the story. I take another sip of water, hiding my smile. Congratulations, Victoria. I'm sure it will be lovely. The rest of dinner passes in a blur of passive-aggressive comments and painful silences. Marcus remains useless, offering no defense when his mother suggests that perhaps I should look into budget fashion blogs for the upcoming season's events. By the time Victoria brings out her traditional pumpkin pie, ignoring my carefully selected French pastries, I'm counting the minutes until we can leave. As we gather our coats at the end of the evening, Victoria pulls me aside, her manicured hand gripping my arm just a little too tightly. Olivia, dear, she says, her voice hushed but razor sharp. A little advice from someone who knows this world. It's not enough to marry into money. You have to belong. She adjusts my collar with mock concern. And you, my dear, will never belong. I meet her gaze steadily. Thank you for dinner, Victoria. It was illuminating as always. In the car, Marcus sighs heavily. That wasn't so bad, was it? I stare at him, incredulous. Your mother called me poor in front of your entire family. Multiple times. He shrugs, uncomfortable. That's just how she is. She comes from a different generation. A different world. And you said nothing, I reply, my voice flat. What do you want me to do, Olivia? Start a fight at Thanksgiving dinner? She's my mother. And I'm your wife. Marcus turns the key in the ignition. Let's not do this now. It's been a long day. I turn to look out the window as we pull away from the Hartwell family estate. Marcus doesn't know about the money. No one does. When my grandfather passed away last year, leaving me his entire tech company fortune, the one he built from scratch after immigrating with nothing, I decided to keep it quiet. I wanted to see who truly valued me for me, not for my newly acquired millions. The answer, it turned out, was virtually no one in the Hartwell circle. Especially not my husband, who continued to let his family belittle me rather than rock the gilded boat of his inheritance. As we drive in silence through the affluent neighborhoods of Westbrook Hills, we pass Oakwood Manor. Its grand silhouette stands against the evening sky, the "For Sale" sign just visible in the glow of the streetlights. It really is beautiful, Marcus comments absently. Mom's been obsessed with that place for as long as I can remember. Her friend Elizabeth grew up there before her father lost everything in the market crash. Mom always said she'd buy it back for the family someday. I say nothing, just watch. As the mansion disappears from view. Little does he know that in less than 12 hours, I'll be signing the papers that make it mine. Not ours. Mine. The next morning, I rise early, dressing carefully in a sleek black pantsuit and simple pearl earrings. Marcus barely stirs as I leave, mumbling something about meeting clients for brunch. He doesn't question it. He never does. The real estate office of Werner and Associates exudes old money and discretion. Jonathan Werner himself greets me in the lobby, his handshake firm, his smile genuine. Mrs. Hartwell, right on time. The sellers are very pleased with your offer. Significantly above asking price and an all-cash deal, that's rare even in this market. I return his smile. I know what the property is worth, Mr. Werner. He leads me to a conference room where papers are already laid out. I must say, when you mentioned that you wanted to keep this transaction private, even from your husband, I was a bit surprised. It's not often we see purchases of this magnitude handled by just one spouse. My husband will be informed when the time is right, I reply smoothly. For now, I'd prefer this remain confidential. Jonathan nods, professional as ever. Some things are worth preserving, I say, picking up the pen. With each signature, I feel a weight lifting from my shoulders. The final document signed, Jonathan hands me the keys, heavy, antique, and symbolic of so much more than just a house. Congratulations, Ms. Chen. Oakwood Manor is yours. I thank him, arranging for the utilities to be transferred immediately and for a cleaning crew to begin work that afternoon. As I leave the office, keys in hand, I check my phone. 3. Missed calls from Victoria Hartwell. I smile and slip the phone back into my purse. By evening, I've arranged for movers to come the following day. I've contacted contractors about immediate renovations and called the best interior designer in the state. Money moves mountains, and I have plenty to move. When Marcus comes home, I'm packing a suitcase. What's going on? He asks, his brow furrowed in confusion. I'm leaving, I say simply. Leaving? What are you talking about? Where are you going? I close the suitcase with a decisive snap. I bought a house. You what? We can't afford a house. Not in this area. What are you talking about? I look at him, really look at him, this man who has stood by and watched his family humiliate me for 3 years. This man who chose comfort over courage every single time. You're right, Marcus. You can't afford a house in this area. But I can. His confusion deepens. Olivia, you're not making sense. My grandfather left me everything when he died last year. His company, his investments, everything. I'm worth more than your entire family combined, Marcus. I have been this whole time. The color drains from his face. What? Why didn't you tell me? I wanted to see if you would stand up for me without the incentive of money. You failed. Spectacularly. He shakes his head, disbelieving. This is crazy. Where are you going to go? I pick up my suitcase. Oakwood Manor. His jaw drops. My mother's dream house? The one she just put an offer on? The one I outbid her on. By quite a margin. I walk to the door, then turn back. To face him. You should call her. She'll be getting the news from her real estate agent any minute now. As if on cue, Marcus's phone rings. The screen shows his mother's name and picture. I smile. You should get that. It sounds important. I walk out the door, leaving Marcus staring after me, his mother's ringtone filling the silence of the apartment we once shared. For the first time in 3 years, I feel completely, gloriously free. As I drive toward my new home, my very own manor, I think about Victoria's face when she learns the truth. About Marcus's spineless attempts to explain. About Charlotte's shock and Daniel's uncomfortable silence. They thought I was nothing. They were wrong. The gates of Oakwood Manor swing open for me, the new security system responding to my approach. The grand house rises before me, its Victorian elegance silhouetted against the evening sky. This is no longer Victoria Hartwell's dream home. It's my new beginning. I park in the circular driveway and step out, the gravel crunching satisfyingly beneath my heels. The key slides into the lock with a heavy, solid click, and the massive front door swings open to reveal a soaring entryway with a sweeping staircase. Standing in the grand foyer of what is now my home, I take a deep breath. The air smells of lemon polish and possibility. Tomorrow, the renovations begin. Tomorrow, I reclaim not just this house, but my dignity. Tomorrow, Victoria Hartwell will learn what poor really means, poor in character, poor in kindness, poor in the things that actually matter. But tonight, I climb the magnificent staircase alone, my footsteps echoing through the rooms that will soon be filled with the life I choose to create. No more Hartwell holidays. No more silent humiliations. No more pretending to be less than I am. My phone buzzes with texts and calls from Marcus, but I silence it without looking. Whatever he has to say can wait. I've waited 3 years for this moment. At the top of the stairs, I turn and look down at the grand entryway, imagining. For a moment Victoria standing there, her face twisted with shock and rage when she realizes what has happened. That her precious dream home now belongs to the daughter-in-law she deemed unworthy. Welcome home, I whisper to myself, and for the first time in years, I truly mean it. The first knock comes just after 9 the next morning. I'm in what will become my home office, surrounded by paint swatches and renovation plans when my phone buzzes with the security alert. On the camera feed, I see Victoria Hartwell standing at my front door, her posture rigid with barely contained fury. Behind her, Marcus shifts nervously from foot to foot, looking everywhere but at the camera. I take my time walking to the door, each step measured and deliberate. 3 years of swallowing my pride, of silent humiliation, of being made to feel less than, it all falls away with each step I take across the gleaming hardwood floors of my new home. When I open the door, Victoria's face is a masterpiece of conflicting emotions, shock, rage, disbelief, and underneath it all, fear. She's wearing her battle armor, a tailored Burberry coat, pearls at her throat, hair perfectly coiffed. But for once, she looks uncertain. What is the meaning of this? She demands, her voice shaking slightly. Jonathan Werner tells me you purchased Oakwood. This is some kind of sick joke. I lean against the doorframe, making no move to invite them in. Not a joke, Victoria. Just good business. You taught me the importance of acquiring the finer things in life, remember? Marcus steps forward, his face pale. Olivia, please. Can we talk about this? Mom is very upset. I can see that, I reply coolly. How unfortunate for her. Victoria's eyes narrow, her momentary uncertainty hardening back into the imperious disdain I know so well. You can't possibly afford this property. What did you do Take out some ridiculous loan? Mortgage yourself to the hilt? This house belongs in our family. I smile, slow and deliberate. It belongs to whoever can pay for it, Victoria. And I paid for it. In full. No loans, no mortgages, no family money needed. Marcus runs a hand through his hair, a nervous habit he's had since college. Olivia says her grandfather left her money. A lot of money. Victoria's laugh is sharp and dismissive. Your grandfather? The old man who owned that tiny electronics repair shop? Please. That tiny repair shop was the starting point for Chintech Industries, I say quietly. Perhaps. You've heard of it? The company that revolutionized microprocessor manufacturing in the early 2000s? The company that holds patents used in nearly every smartphone on the market? Victoria's face goes completely blank, then flushes with color. You're lying. Am I? Robert Chen was my grandfather. When he died last year, he left everything to me, his only grandchild. I kept it quiet because I wanted to see how people treated me without knowing my net worth. I look pointedly at Marcus. It was quite educational. Victoria's perfectly manicured hand grips her designer handbag so tightly her knuckles turn white. This is absurd. If you had that kind of money all along, why would you let you think I was beneath you? I finish for her. I didn't. You decided that all on your own, Victoria. You never once bothered to ask about my family, my background, my accomplishments. You were too busy reminding me that I wasn't good enough for your precious son. Marcus steps forward again, his expression pleading. Olivia, this has gone far enough. You've made your point. Let's go home and talk about this. I am home, I reply simply. As for you, I think it's time you went back to your mother's house. I'm sure she has a room waiting for you. Victoria's face contorts with rage. You think you can just buy this house out from under me and humiliate my family? Do you know who we are in this community? I know exactly who you are, I say, my voice steady. And more importantly, I know who I am. Something you never bothered to learn. I begin to close the door, but Victoria shoves her foot forward, preventing it from shutting completely. This isn't over, she hisses. You can't just walk away from my son and expect there won't be consequences. We are the Hartwells. We have connections you can't even imagine. I look at her foot, then back at her face. Remove your foot from my doorway, Victoria, or I'll call the police and have you removed from my property. For a moment, I think she might actually risk it, but then Marcus gently pulls her back. Mom, come on. Let's go. This isn't helping. Victoria allows herself to be led away, but turns back at the bottom of the porch steps. You'll regret this, Olivia. Nobody walks away from this family unscathed. I watch them leave, Victoria's threats hanging in the air like storm clouds. As their car disappears down the long driveway, I finally let out the breath I've been holding. The confrontation has left me shaking, but not with fear, with exhilaration. For the first time in years, I've stood my ground. Inside, my phone is already buzzing with messages. News travels fast in Westbrook Hills. The designer I've hired texts to confirm our appointment. The contractor wants to review the renovation plans. And there, buried among the business messages, a text from Charlotte, you think you're so clever. Watch your back. I delete it without responding and turn back to my work. There's so much to do to transform this house into the home I envision. I spend the day in a whirlwind of activity, meeting with the contractor, selecting finishes, arranging for security upgrades. By evening, I'm exhausted but satisfied. As darkness falls, I pour myself a glass of wine and wander through the empty rooms of Oakwood Manor. Despite its grandeur, the house has good bones but needs significant updating. The previous owners hadn't renovated in decades, which is precisely why Victoria wanted it, a blank canvas for her to display her wealth and taste. Now it's my canvas. In what will become the library, I sit on the floor with my back against the wall, sipping my wine and scrolling through my phone. The notifications have multiplied, curious messages from acquaintances, concerned texts from the few friends I made since marrying Marcus, and a voicemail from my lawyer warning that Marcus is already making noise about divorce proceedings. And his share of my inheritance. I laugh out loud at that one, the sound echoing in the empty room. There is no his share. I never added his name to any accounts. The prenuptial agreement he so casually dismissed as unnecessary now stands as an impenetrable wall between him and my grandfather's fortune. My grandfather would have appreciated the irony. Robert Chen arrived in America with $8 in his pocket and a head full of ideas. He worked 16-hour days, faced discrimination and setbacks, but never wavered in his belief that innovation and hard work would eventually triumph. When his first patent was approved, he celebrated by buying my grandmother a single rose, all he could afford at the time. By the time I was born, he was already successful, but he never forgot those early struggles. Money doesn't make you better than anyone else, he would tell me. It just gives you more choices. Always use those choices wisely. I wonder what he would think of how I've used my inheritance. Buying Victoria's dream house was petty, perhaps, but after years of her subtle cruelty, it felt like poetic justice. My phone rings, jolting me from my thoughts. It's an unknown number, but I answer anyway. Hello? Ms. Chen? This is Eliza Peterson. The name takes a moment to register. Elizabeth Peterson, Victoria's childhood friend, the one whose family originally owned Oakwood Manor. Mrs. Peterson, how did you get my number? Jonathan Werner gave it to me. I hope you don't mind. Her voice is warm, with none of the brittleness I've come to expect from Victoria's circle. I wanted to thank you personally for purchasing Oakwood. When we decided to sell, I was terrified it would go to developers who would tear it down for condos. I find myself smiling. I would never let that happen. This house deserves to be preserved. That's what Jonathan said. He also mentioned you outbid Victoria Hartwell quite substantially. There's a hint of amusement in her voice. I imagine she wasn't pleased. You could say that. Eliza laughed softly. Victoria and I were best friends once, before my father lost everything. The day we had to move out of Oakwood was the day Victoria stopped inviting me to her parties. Suddenly, I wasn't good enough for her world anymore. The parallel to my own experience with Victoria isn't lost on me. She hasn't changed much, then. No, she hasn't. Which is why I called. I have some things from Oakwood, family photos, original blueprints, journals kept by my great-grandmother about the house. I thought you might like to have them, to help with your restoration. I'm touched by the gesture. I would love that, Mrs. Peterson. Thank you. Please, call me Eliza. And perhaps you'll let me visit sometime? I haven't been inside Oakwood since we left when I was 17. Of course. You're welcome anytime. After we hang up, I sit with my wine, contemplating this unexpected alliance. In trying to escape Victoria's influence, I've inadvertently connected with someone from her past, someone she once discarded, just as she tried to discard me. There's a lesson there, I think. About the circles we build and break, about the unexpected paths that open when we stand up for ourselves. The next morning brings another confrontation, this one more subtle. I'm meeting with the landscape architect on the grounds when a sleek black Mercedes pulls up. Charlotte emerges, looking immaculate in designer jeans and a cashmere sweater. That probably cost more than most people's monthly rent. Unlike her mother, Charlotte doesn't bother with pretense. You've got some nerve, she says, stalking toward me across the lawn. I excuse myself from the landscape architect and meet Charlotte halfway. Good morning to you too, Charlotte. Cut the crap, Olivia. Do you have any idea what you've done? Mom is absolutely beside herself. She's been planning to buy this place. For decades. I shrug. Perhaps she should have made a better offer. Charlotte's laugh is ugly, reminiscent of her mother's. This isn't about money. This is about you trying to get back at my family because your feelings got hurt. It's pathetic and transparent. Is that what Victoria told you? That poor little Olivia got her feelings hurt? Didn't you? Isn't that what this whole charade is about? Trying to prove you're just as good as us? I study Charlotte's face. The perfect symmetry, the expensive skincare regimen, the carefully cultivated look of casual elegance that takes hours and thousands of dollars to achieve. I used to envy her, this woman who had never known what it meant to doubt her place in the world. No, Charlotte, I say finally. This isn't about proving I'm as good as you. It's about recognizing that I never needed your family's approval. In the first place. She falters slightly, her rehearsed indignation momentarily derailed. Well, you certainly have a strange way of showing it. Buying Mom's dream house? Moving out on Marcus without warning? The whole town is talking. Let them talk. I'm past caring what any of you think. Charlotte narrows her eyes. Marcus says you're claiming to be some secret heiress. That your grandfather was rich all along. If that's true, why did you pretend to be middle class? Why did you let Mom think? I never pretended anything, I interrupt. Your mother assumed. You all did. Not once in 3 years did any of you actually ask about my family, my background, my career. You were too busy reminding me that I wasn't one of you. So what? You just decided to keep your money secret to, what, test us? That's manipulative and weird. I can't help but laugh at the hypocrisy. And constantly belittling someone because you think they're less wealthy than you isn't manipulative? Your mother spent 3 years trying to make me feel small, Charlotte. You helped her. Don't act shocked when I finally decided to stand up for myself. Charlotte shifts uncomfortably, her gaze drifting to the grand house behind me. So what happens now? You're just going to live here alone? Make over the house to spite my mother? What happens now is none of your concern. My life is no longer entangled with your family's. Except through Marcus. He's still your husband, or have you forgotten that? Not for long, I reply calmly. The divorce papers should be delivered to your mother's house this afternoon. I'm sure Marcus is finding the guest room comfortable. Charlotte's expression shifts from anger to something closer to grudging respect. You really did plan this whole thing, didn't you? The quiet, accommodating Olivia was an act all along. Not an act. Just a woman who finally had enough. She studies me for a long moment, then shakes her head. You know, it's almost a shame. If you'd shown this much backbone earlier, Mom might have actually liked you. I don't need her to like me, Charlotte. I never did. As Charlotte drives away, I feel lighter somehow, as if each confrontation is helping me shed the layers of insecurity and doubt that accumulated during my years with the Hartwells. The landscape architect approaches cautiously. Everything okay, Ms. Chen? Everything is perfect, I reply, turning back to the garden plans. Now, tell me more about those heritage roses you mentioned. The weeks that follow are a blur of activity. The renovation begins in earnest, craftsmen restoring ornate plasterwork, electricians updating ancient wiring, painters transforming dark wood-paneled walls into light, airy spaces. I throw myself into the project, creating detailed plans. For each room, sourcing antique fixtures that honor the home's history while incorporating modern comforts. Word spreads quickly about the new owner of Oakwood Manor and my connection to Chintech Industries. Suddenly, the same people who followed Victoria's lead in dismissing me are sending friend requests and party invitations. I decline them all. Instead, I focus on building new connections. I meet with Eliza Peterson for tea, listening to her stories about growing up at Oakwood, leafing through the family albums she's brought. When she tears up seeing the master bedroom where her parents once slept, I make a decision. The East Wing guest suite, I tell her. I'm restoring it to how it looked when your family lived here, using your photographs as reference. I'd like you to stay there whenever you visit. Eliza's gratitude is genuine, unlike the calculated social transactions I've become accustomed to in Victoria's world. We form an unlikely friendship, the former owner's daughter and the new mistress of Oakwood Manor, both women who understand what it means to fall from Victoria Hartwell's grace. Marcus attempts reconciliation exactly once. He arrives unannounced on a Saturday afternoon, holding a bouquet of roses and wearing his most contrite expression. You've made your point, Olivia, he says when I meet him at the door. Everyone's impressed. You've shown my mother you're not to be trifled with. Now can we please put this behind us and go back to normal? I stare at him, this man I once thought I loved, and feel nothing. No anger, no hurt, just a vague sense of wonder that I ever cared so much about his approval. This is my normal. Now, Marcus. You should go. His facade of contrition cracks. You can't be serious. You're throwing away our marriage over a few comments my mother made? She didn't mean anything by it. That's just how she is. That's exactly the problem. That's how she is, and you never once stood up for me. Not once in 3 years. So I'm supposed to just cut my mother out of my life? Is that what you want? I shake my head. What I wanted was a partner who treated me with respect. Who expected his family to do the same. I never had that with you. His expression hardens. And the money? Were you ever going to tell me about that, or were you just quietly judging me the whole time, waiting for me to fail some test I didn't know I was taking? Would it have mattered? I ask quietly. If you'd known I was wealthy, would you have stood up to your mother then? Would money have made me worthy of your defense? He has no answer for that. Goodbye, Marcus, I say, closing the door on our marriage, on the years I spent trying to earn the approval of people who never intended to give it. That night, I walk through the half-renovated rooms of Oakwood Manor, listening to the sounds of the old house settling. There's still so much work to be done, so many decisions to make. But for the first time in years, every choice is mine alone. My phone buzzes with an email from my lawyer. The divorce is proceeding smoothly, though Marcus's attorney has made some noise about challenging the prenup. It won't work, we both know that, but it's one last attempt to exert control. I put the phone away and climb the grand staircase to the master suite, the one room I've already had completely renovated. The space is exactly as I envisioned it, serene, elegant, with no trace of Victoria Hartwell's influence or taste. From my bedroom window, I can see the lights of Westbrook Hills spread out below, including the distant glow of the Hartwell estate. Victoria is hosting one of her famous dinner parties tonight. I know because I declined the invitation that arrived last week, a calculated olive branch extended only after she learned of my true financial status. Some things money can't buy. Like sincerity, or respect that doesn't depend on your bank balance. I turn away from the window and the view of Victoria's world. Tomorrow, Eliza is bringing her grandchildren to see Oakwood. Tomorrow, the new gardens will be planted. Tomorrow, I'll continue building a life that has nothing to do with proving my worth to people who never deserved my energy in the first place. But tonight, in this moment of quiet triumph, I finally understand what my grandfather meant about choices. Money didn't make me better than Victoria Hartwell or her family. It just gave me the freedom to walk away from people who couldn't see my value beyond my perceived net worth. And that, I realize as I gaze around the room that is finally, truly mine, is worth more than all the dream houses in the world. 6 months after purchasing Oakwood Manor, I stand in the grand foyer watching caterers arrange elaborate floral displays for tonight's charity gala. The restoration is complete, every room transformed while still honoring the home's historic character. Tonight, Westbrook Hill's elite will descend on my doorstep, not for Victoria Hartwell's approval, but for mine. The East Terrace is ready, Miss Chen, my event coordinator says, tablet in hand. The string quartet is set up, and the chef wants to confirm the timing for the first course. I nod, making a mental note to check the terrace myself before guests arrive. This isn't just any charity gala, it's the annual Children's Hospital benefit, the crown jewel of Westbrook Hill's social calendar. For 23 years, Victoria Hartwell has hosted this event at her estate. This year, the hospital board unanimously voted to move it to Oakwood Manor. Thank you, Naomi. Tell Chef Andre I'll be in the kitchen shortly. As Naomi hurries off, I take a moment to appreciate how far I've come. 6 months ago, I was the outsider, the daughter-in-law, who didn't belong. Tonight, I'm opening my home to raise funds for a cause I genuinely believe in, on my own terms. The divorce was finalized 3 months ago with minimal drama. Marcus finally accepted that the prenup was ironclad, though not before Victoria made a last-ditch effort to challenge my inheritance. Her attorneys sent threatening letters suggesting my grandfather's fortune was somehow questionable, a move that backfired spectacularly when my legal team produced decades of impeccable financial records and valid patents. The florists need to know if you want additional arrangements for the library, says a voice behind me. I turn to find Eliza Peterson, elegant in a simple navy dress, her silver hair swept into a chic bob. In the months since our first meeting, she's become not just a friend but a mentor. What do you think? I ask her. Too much? Eliza laughs. In Victoria's world, there's no such thing as too much. But this isn't her world anymore, is it? No, I smile. It's not. Together, we walk through the ground floor, making final adjustments to decorations and checking that everything is perfect. Unlike Victoria's ostentatious displays, I've opted for understated elegance, cream roses and hydrangeas, ambient lighting that highlights the restored architectural details, and strategic splashes of color in artwork and textiles. Victoria called me yesterday, Eliza says casually as we adjust a flower arrangement in the library. First time in 30 years. I raise an eyebrow. What did she want? An invitation to tonight's gala, of course. Apparently, hers was lost in the mail. We share a knowing look. Victoria's invitation wasn't lost, it was never sent. A deliberate exclusion that mirrors her own treatment of me for 3 years. And what did you tell her? I ask. That she should contact the hostess directly. Eliza's eyes twinkle with mischief. She hasn't called you, has she? Strangely, no. I adjust a cream rose in the centerpiece. But Charlotte did. She apologized. You know. For how she treated me. Eliza looks surprised. Charlotte Hartwell apologized? That must have cost her. I think it did. She said watching her mother's social standing crumble made her realize how quickly fortunes can change. I step back to assess the arrangement. I invited her tonight. Not Victoria, just Charlotte. That's very gracious of you. Is it? Sometimes I wonder if I'm being petty, excluding Victoria while inviting her daughter. Eliza places a gentle hand on my arm. Healing doesn't mean you have to let toxic people back into your life, Olivia. Forgiveness and reconciliation are separate things. Her words resonate with something my grandfather used to say, be kind, but don't be a doormat. Not everyone deserves access to your life. We're interrupted by Naomi, who appears with a worried expression. Miss Chen, there's a situation at the gate. Victoria Hartwell is demanding entry. She says she's here to supervise the setup since she's chaired this event for 2 decades. Eliza and I exchange glances. I'll handle this, I say, already moving toward the front door. Outside, the late afternoon sun casts long shadows across the immaculate lawns of Oakwood Manor. At the ornate iron gates, Victoria's Mercedes idles while she argues with my security guard. Even from a distance, I can see she's dressed for the gala in an elaborate silver gown, as if her appearance alone should guarantee admission. I approach the gate slowly, deliberately, giving myself time to center my thoughts. When Victoria spots Me, she straightens, her expression shifting from indignation to calculated charm. Olivia, darling, she calls through the bars. There seems to be some confusion with your staff. I'm here to help with the final arrangements for the gala. There's no confusion, Victoria, I reply calmly. You weren't invited. Her smile falters, but she recovers quickly. Don't be absurd. I've chaired this event for 23 years. The hospital board expects me to oversee. The hospital board voted unanimously to transfer chairmanship to me, I interrupt. They were quite impressed with my donation of the new pediatric wing. Victoria's facade cracks slightly. You bought your way onto the board. No, Victoria. I earned my place by demonstrating actual commitment to the cause, not just using it as a social stepping stone. I meet her gaze steadily. You've been relieved of your duties. The board sent official notification 3 weeks ago. Her face flushes with anger. This is outrageous. You think you can just waltz into this community and take over? You're nothing but an opportunist who got lucky with an inheritance. Is that really the argument you want to make? I ask quietly. That I don't deserve my place because my wealth is inherited? Remind me, Victoria, what exactly did you do to earn the Hartwell fortune beyond marrying into it? The barb hits. It's Mark. Victoria's mouth opens, then closes, her carefully constructed superiority momentarily shattered. Go home, Victoria, I say, not unkindly. This isn't your night anymore. I turn to leave, but her voice, sharper now, calls after me. You think you've won, don't you? That you can humiliate me and face no consequences? You forget who I am in this town. I pause, then turn back to her. No, Victoria. You forget who you are without your money and status to hide behind. I've seen the real you, and frankly, it's not impressive. As I walk back toward the house, I hear the Mercedes engine roar to life, tires spitting gravel as Victoria retreats. It should feel like victory, but instead, I feel a strange sense of pity. Victoria has spent her entire life defining herself by her social position, by who she can exclude and belittle. How empty that existence must be. Inside, Eliza is waiting, concern etched on her face. Everything all right? Fine, I assure her. Victoria's gone. She won't give up easily, you know. This is a major blow to her social standing. I know. But I'm done letting Victoria Hartwell determine my worth. The gala begins at 7, and by 7:30, Oakwood Manor is filled with Westbrook Hill's most influential residents. Many are former members of Victoria's inner circle, people who once took their cues from her about who to accept and who to shun. Now they flock around me, eager to establish themselves in the new social order. I move through the crowd, greeting guests and accepting compliments on the restoration of Oakwood. The irony isn't lost on me, many of these same people once snickered behind their hands when Victoria made her cutting remarks about my supposed lack of refinement. Olivia, a familiar voice calls. I turn to see Charlotte making her way toward me, looking striking in a simple black gown. Without her mother's influence, Charlotte has begun to develop her own style, less ostentatious, more genuinely elegant. Charlotte, I greet her. I'm glad you could come. She glances around the beautifully restored grand hall. The house looks amazing. Nothing like what Mom had planned for it. Thank you. That was rather the point. Charlotte laughs, a genuine sound I rarely heard during my marriage to her brother. I bet it was. She hesitates, then adds, Mom tried to crash the party earlier. Dad had to talk her down from making a scene at the gate. I know. I was there. I'm sorry about that. Charlotte's apology seems sincere. For what it's worth, I think she's finally realizing what she lost by treating you the way she did. It's not about punishment, Charlotte. It's about boundaries. I sip my champagne. How is Marcus? Charlotte rolls her eyes. Dating a socialite from Boston. Someone Mom thoroughly approves of, naturally. I think he's trying to erase any evidence that he ever married someone with an actual spine. I can't help but laugh at that. Well, I wish him luck. Do you? Charlotte studies me curiously. Miss him, I mean? I consider the question honestly. No. I miss who I thought he was when we first met, someone kind, someone who would stand by me. But that person never really existed. Charlotte nods slowly. I get that. I've been doing some thinking since everything happened. About the kind of person I want to be. She looks around at the glittering crowd. It's exhausting, you know? Always worrying about status and appearances. Always judging everyone. It is exhausting, I agree. And ultimately empty. Yeah. She hesitates, then asks, do you think people can change? Really change? I think about my own transformation, from the woman who silently endured Victoria's barbs to someone who stands firmly in her own power. I think we can, if we're brave enough to face the truth about ourselves. Our conversation is interrupted by the hospital board chairman, who ushers me toward the makeshift stage for the evening's formal presentations. As I address the crowd, announcing the final fundraising total, nearly double last year's amount, I spot Eliza in the audience, beaming with pride. And finally, I conclude, I'm pleased to announce that the new pediatric wing will be named in honor of Robert Chen, a man who came to this country with nothing and built a legacy not just of wealth, but of compassion and generosity. The applause is thunderous. As I step down from the stage, accepting congratulations and thanks, I catch sight of a familiar figure at the edge of the crowd. Daniel Hartwell, Marcus's brother, watching me with an unreadable expression. Unlike his mother and brother, Daniel has maintained a dignified silence throughout the entire saga. We exchange nods, a silent acknowledgement of respect, before he turns and disappears into the crowd. Later, as the evening winds down and the last guests depart, I find myself on the back terrace, gazing out at the illuminated gardens. Footsteps behind me announce Eliza's approach. A triumph, she says, joining me at the balustrade. You've raised more money for the hospital than Victoria ever did, and you've done it with genuine grace. Thank you for your help, I reply. I couldn't have navigated all this without you. Nonsense. You would have been fine. She pats my hand. But I'm glad to have been along for the ride. It's been the most entertaining 6 months of my retirement. We share a laugh, then fall into comfortable silence, watching the fairy lights twinkle in the garden trees. What will you do now? Eliza asks eventually. You've restored Oakwood, established yourself in the community, shown Victoria Hartwell that her social reign is over. What's next? It's a question I've been asking myself more and more frequently. The initial drive for vindication has faded, replaced by something quieter and more authentic, a desire to build something meaningful with my inheritance, something my grandfather would be proud of. I'm thinking of starting a foundation, I tell her, using some of my grandfather's patents to fund technology education for underprivileged kids. He always believed that innovation should be accessible to everyone, not just those born into privilege. Eliza nods approvingly. Robert Chen's legacy living on in more ways than one. Exactly. I've spent enough time and energy on Victoria Hartwell and her world. It's time to focus on creating something positive. The next morning, I wake early and take my coffee to the sunroom, where the morning light streams through the restored, stained glass windows. My laptop is open to the draft proposal for the Chen Foundation for Technological Innovation, a project that has increasingly consumed my thoughts. My phone rings, an unknown number that I almost ignore, but something compels me to answer. Olivia Chen speaking. Ms. Chen. The voice is male, elderly, formal. My name is Edward Hartwell. I believe you know my daughter-in-law, Victoria. I stiffen instinctively. Edward Hartwell is Victoria's father-in-law, the patriarch who built the Hartwell fortune and who, according to rumor, has been living in semi-seclusion in Switzerland for the past decade. Mr. Hartwell, I acknowledge, keeping my voice neutral. What can I do for you? I understand you've caused quite a stir in Westbrook Hills. There's a hint of amusement in his tone. Buying Oakwood Manor out from under Victoria, outshining her at her own charity gala. Very impressive. I wasn't trying to impress anyone, Mr. Hartwell. No, I don't imagine you were. That's what makes it interesting. He pauses. I'm returning to Westbrook next week. I'd like to meet the woman who finally gave Victoria a taste of her own medicine. I consider refusing, then reconsider. Edward Hartwell remains a powerful figure in financial circles, despite his age and semi-retirement. His influence could be valuable for the foundation I'm planning. I'd be happy to meet with you, Mr. Hartwell. Shall we say Tuesday lunch at Oakwood? Perfect. And Ms. Chen? I know what Victoria is like. What they're all like, my son included. Whatever happened between you and my grandson, I suspect you had good reason for your actions. After he hangs up, I sit with my coffee, contemplating this unexpected development. Edward Hartwell reaching out directly, bypassing Victoria and the rest of the family. It's an interesting move in the chess game I never intended to play. My laptop pings with an email notification, a message from my lawyer about another offer. From Marcus to settle things amicably. I delete it without responding. There's nothing left to settle. The divorce is final, the financial ties severed, the emotional bonds broken long ago. Instead, I open the foundation proposal again, focusing on the section about scholarship opportunities for young women in STEM fields. This is where my energy belongs now, not in proving myself to the Hartwells or anyone else, but in creating something meaningful that honors my grandfather's legacy. The doorbell rings, and I check the security feed to see a delivery man holding an elaborate floral arrangement. I accept the delivery, expecting perhaps a thank you from the hospital board for last night's successful gala. Instead, the card reads simply, "Congratulations on becoming the woman I always knew you could be." RCC. I stare at the familiar initials, a lump forming in my throat. My grandfather has been gone for over a year, but before he died, he must have arranged this delivery for today, the anniversary of his arrival in America 60 years ago. It was just like him to plan such a gesture, to find a way to remind me of his belief in me even after he was gone. Carrying the flowers to the sunroom, I place them where the morning light can catch the vibrant blooms. Robertson had built his fortune from nothing, weathering discrimination and setbacks with a quiet dignity that I've tried to emulate in my own life. When Victoria Hartwell called me poor at that Thanksgiving dinner, she had no idea that she was insulting a legacy of resilience far more valuable than her inherited status. My phone buzzes with a text from Eliza. "Brunch today? I have news about the Historical Society's interest in documenting Oakwood's restoration." I reply affirmatively, then stand at the sunroom windows, gazing out at the gardens I've had restored according to Eliza's family photographs. In the distance, I can just make out the Hartwell estate, where Victoria is no doubt still seething over last night's social humiliation. Let her seethe. I have a foundation to build, a legacy to honor, a life to live on my own terms. The flowers from my grandfather catch the sunlight, casting prism-like reflections across the polished floor. "I see you, Grandpa," I whisper to the empty room. "I remember what matters." And what matters, I've learned, is not proving your worth to those who refuse to see it, but recognizing it within yourself, and using whatever resources you have, whether modest or substantial, to create something meaningful in the world. Victoria Hartwell called me poor because in her narrow worldview, worth is measured only in dollars and social standing. What she failed to understand is that true poverty is a poverty of character, of compassion, of purpose. By that measure, despite all her wealth and status, Victoria has always been the poorest person I know. I pick up my phone again and open the foundation proposal document, making a new note at the top, dedicated to those who define wealth not by what they possess, but by what they create. In buying Victoria's dream house, I didn't just acquire a property, I reclaimed my sense of self-worth. The house is beautiful, certainly, but it's just a structure of wood and stone. The real victory was in recognizing that I never needed Victoria's approval, or Marcus's defense, or anyone else's validation to be worthy of respect and dignity. That realization is worth more than all the dream houses in the world. And unlike Oakwood Manor, it's something no one can ever take away from me. 1 year to the day after I purchased Oakwood Manor, I stand at the entrance of the Chin Foundation for Technological Innovation, watching as the final touches are added to the reception area. The foundation occupies the entire third floor of a gleaming downtown building, its glass walls offering panoramic views of the city skyline. The space is modern yet welcoming, open-concept workstations, collaboration pods with state-of-the-art technology, and walls adorned with photographs documenting my grandfather's journey from immigrant repair shop owner to tech industry pioneer. "Miss Chen." My assistant approaches with a tablet in hand. The first scholarship recipients are arriving in 20 minutes, and Dr. Patel called to confirm she'll be here to present the STEM education initiative. "Thank you, Zoe. Is the press briefing set up in the conference room?" "Yes, and we've prepared information packets highlighting the Foundation's first-year achievements." She hesitates before adding, "Also, Victoria Hartwell called again. She's quite insistent about joining the advisory board." I suppress a smile. Victoria's third attempt this month to insert herself into the Foundation's work, a complete reversal from her previous disdain. After my meeting with Edward Hartwell 6 months ago, the family dynamics shifted dramatically. The elderly patriarch had been appalled by his daughter-in-law's behavior once he understood the full story, and his public support of my foundation had sent shockwaves through Westbrook Hill's social circles. "Please inform Mrs. Hartwell that all board positions have been filled, but we welcome volunteers for our community outreach programs." I keep my tone neutral, professional. "She's welcome to fill out an application like everyone else." The thought of Victoria Hartwell, who once sneered at my supposedly humble background, filling out a volunteer application brings a certain poetic justice. But my decision isn't about petty revenge. The Foundation's work is too important to risk compromising its integrity with board members chosen for social connections rather than genuine commitment to our mission. "Of course." Zoe makes a note, then glances toward the elevator. "Mr. Hartwell is here." I turn to see Edward Hartwell emerging from the elevator, leaning slightly on an elegant ebony cane but otherwise looking remarkably spry for his 82 years. Since our first meeting at Oakwood 6 months ago, he's become an unexpected ally and mentor, offering insights from his decades of philanthropic work that have proved invaluable in establishing the foundation. Olivia, he greets me warmly, taking in the bustling activity around us. Quite a transformation from when I saw the space last month. We've been working around the clock to be ready for today's launch, I reply, leading him toward my office. Your advice about the scholarship structure was instrumental in finalizing the program. Inside my office, a glass-walled space that maintains the open feeling of the foundation while providing privacy for sensitive conversations, Edward settles into a chair with a satisfied sigh. I've been reviewing the press materials your team sent over, he says, tapping a folder on my desk. Impressive first-year projections. 50 full STEM scholarships, technology resource centers in 3 underfunded school districts, and a mentorship program connecting industry leaders with promising students. We're starting relatively small to ensure quality, I explain. But with the patent licensing agreements in place, we'll be able to expand significantly in year 2. Edward nods approvingly. Smart approach. Too many foundations try to do too much too quickly and end up delivering nothing well. He fixes me with his shrewd gaze. You know, when I first requested that meeting at Oakwood, I was merely curious about the woman who had so thoroughly outmaneuvered my daughter-in-law. I smile at the memory. And I was wary of another Hartwell trying to manipulate the situation. Understandably so. He taps his cane thoughtfully against the floor. What I found instead was a woman with vision and purpose, qualities sorely lacking in my own family, I'm afraid. Your support has meant a great deal, I tell him sincerely. Especially given the family complications. Edward waves a dismissive hand. Victoria has always confused social status with actual achievement. It's why I stepped back from the family business years ago. I couldn't bear to watch her turn the Hartwell name into nothing more than a ticket to exclusive parties. His expression turns contemplative. And my grandson, well, Marcus always took the path of least resistance. Not unlike his father. The mention of Marcus brings a momentary twinge, not of regret or longing, but of something closer to pity. According to Charlotte, who has maintained a cordial relationship with me over the past year, Marcus's new relationship with the Boston socialite has already begun to sour, with the same patterns emerging. He remains unwilling to stand up to his mother, unwilling to define himself beyond the Hartwell name and fortune. Speaking of your family, I say, changing the subject, how did Victoria react to your investment in the foundation? Edward's laugh is sharp and surprisingly youthful. She was livid, naturally. Accused me of betraying the family by supporting you. I reminded her that the Hartwell fortune came from my work, not hers, and I'll allocate it as I see fit. He shakes his head. The woman has spent decades using my son's money to build her social kingdom, and she's never once considered what actual legacy she's creating. Before I can respond, Zoe appears at the door. Excuse me, Ms. Chen. The scholarship recipients are beginning to arrive, and the mayor's office called to confirm he'll be here for the ribbon cutting. Thank you, Zoe. Please show them to the reception area. I'll be there momentarily. As Zoe departs, Edward rises slowly from his chair. I should let you prepare for your big moment. But before I go, there's something I wanted to discuss with you. His tone shifts, becoming more formal, and I feel a flutter of apprehension. Despite our growing friendship, Edward Hartwell remains a formidable business figure whose motives aren't always transparent. I'm reorganizing my personal holdings, he continues, specifically the educational trust one established years ago. I've been looking for the right person to oversee its transition into something more impactful than just writing checks to prestigious universities. I wait, sensing there's more to this conversation than casual information sharing. The trust currently holds approximately $80 million, he says matter-of-factly. I'd like to merge it with your foundation, with you as the controlling director. For a moment, I'm speechless. The Chen Foundation is already well funded through my grandfather's estate, but an infusion of this magnitude would allow us to expand our programs nationally, perhaps even internationally. That's extremely generous, I finally manage. But why not keep it within your family? Surely Daniel or even Charlotte would. Daniel lacks vision, and Charlotte, while improving, is still finding her way. Edward's assessment is blunt but not unkind. More importantly, neither of them truly understands what I've come to recognize over the past 6 months, that real philanthropy isn't about putting your name on buildings or getting photographed at charity galas. It's about creating systemic change. He fixes me with an evaluating gaze. When Victoria called you poor at that Thanksgiving dinner, she revealed not just her own shallow values but a fundamental misunderstanding of what wealth truly means. You could have used your inheritance simply for revenge or personal luxury. Instead, you've created something that will outlast both of us. He taps his cane decisively. That's the kind of stewardship I want for my legacy. Before I can formulate a response, Zoe reappears, looking apologetic but insistent. Miss Chen, I'm sorry to interrupt, but the first group of scholarship recipients is assembled, and the media has started to arrive. We'll continue this conversation soon, Edward says, gesturing for me to lead the way. Today is about celebrating what you've built. The next hour passes in a whirlwind of introductions, speeches, and photographs. Standing at the podium before a crowd of eager young scholarship recipients, community leaders, and media representatives, I feel a profound sense of purpose that far outweighs any satisfaction I ever derived from proving Victoria Hartwell wrong. The Chen Foundation was born from a simple belief, I tell the assembled crowd. That innovation should be accessible to everyone, regardless of background or circumstance. My grandfather arrived in this country with $8 in his pocket and a head full of ideas. What made the difference in his life was access to education, to opportunity, to mentorship. I gesture toward the 25 young women and 25 young men who represent our first cohort of scholarship recipients, bright, determined students from underserved communities who will receive full funding for STEM degrees. These brilliant minds represent our future. Their potential innovations, their future contributions, these are worth far more than any personal fortune. True wealth isn't measured by what we acquire, but by what we enable others to achieve. As I conclude my remarks, I notice a familiar figure at the back of the room. Charlotte Hartwell stands near the exit, watching the proceedings with an unreadable expression. When our eyes meet, she gives a small nod of acknowledgement. After the formal program ends and guests begin to mingle, Charlotte approaches. Looking elegant but subdued in a simple blue dress, a far cry from the ostentatious designer outfits she favored during my marriage to her brother. Impressive, she says, gesturing around at the foundation space. Not just the fancy building, but what you're doing with it. Those kids' faces when you announced the mentorship program, that was real. Thank you, I reply, genuinely touched by her observation. That means a lot. Charlotte shifts uncomfortably. I'm not here just to congratulate you. I wanted to warn you, Mom is on the warpath again. Grandfather's decision to invest in your foundation has her convinced you're manipulating him to get revenge on the family. I suppress a sigh. Edward is a grown man with decades of business experience. I hardly think I'm manipulating him. You and I know that, but Mom needs someone to blame for her declining influence. Charlotte glances around to ensure we're not overheard. She's talking about contesting grandfather's competence if he goes through with restructuring his educational trust. The news should anger me, but instead, I feel a wave of something closer to exhaustion. Victoria's relentless need to control and dominate has become almost pitiable. Thank you for the warning, I tell Charlotte sincerely. But Edward is more than capable of handling Victoria. And frankly, I have more important concerns than your mother's wounded pride. Charlotte studies me for a moment, then nods. You really have moved on, haven't you? Not just from Marcus, but from all of it, the need to prove yourself to our family, the desire for validation. I had to, I reply simply. Holding on to resentment would have meant letting Victoria continue to define my worth. I decided to define it for myself instead. Later, after the last guests have departed and the foundation staff is cleaning up from the launch event, I find myself alone in my office, reflecting on the day's events. On my desk sits a framed photograph of my grandfather on the day he received his first patent, a moment of triumph after years of struggle and rejection. Beside it, a small jade elephant he always kept on his workbench for good luck. My phone buzzes with a text from Eliza Peterson, watched the foundation launch online. Robert would be bursting with pride. Dinner at Oakwood this weekend to celebrate? I smile, typing back a quick affirmative response. In the year since I purchased Oakwood Manor, Eliza has become family in all the ways that matter, supportive, honest, genuinely caring. Her guidance helped transform the house from a symbol of revenge into a true home filled with warmth and purpose. A knock at my door interrupts my thoughts. Zoe enters with a curious expression and a small, elegantly wrapped package. This was just delivered for you, she says, placing it on my desk. The messenger was very specific that it should be given to you privately after the event. The package bears no card or identifying information. Intrigued, I carefully unwrap it to reveal a small velvet box. Inside lies an antique jade bracelet of exceptional quality, nestled on black silk. A small note card reads simply, to remind you of your heritage and strength. Vic H. I stare at the initials in disbelief. Victoria Hartwell sending me a gift? And not just any gift, but one that acknowledges my Chinese heritage, something she had previously only referenced with thinly veiled xenophobic remarks. Before I can process this unexpected development, my phone rings with an unfamiliar number. Against my better judgment, I answer. Olivia Chen. Ms. Chen. Victoria's voice is instantly recognizable, though lacking its usual sharp edge. I see the package was delivered. It was, I confirm, keeping my tone neutral. Though I must admit I'm surprised. There's a pause, then Victoria says, the bracelet belonged to my grandmother. She received it as a gift from a Chinese diplomat in the 1930s and always said it represented resilience and dignity under pressure. Another pause. Qualities I've been forced to recognize in you over the past year. The admission clearly costs her, each word carefully measured. This is not the Victoria Hartwell I knew, the woman who casually dismissed me at every opportunity, who called me poor with such casual cruelty at that Thanksgiving table. Why now, Victoria? I asked directly. After everything that's happened? I hear her inhale slowly before responding. My father-in-law made some things very clear to me recently. About legacy. About what we leave behind. Her voice takes on an unfamiliar quality, something almost like humility. I've spent decades building a social position that, in the end, amounts to nothing of real value. While you, in just 1 year, have created something that will outlast both of us. I remain silent, waiting for the other shoe to drop, the hidden agenda, the subtle manipulation that has always characterized my interactions with Victoria Hartwell. I don't expect forgiveness, she continues when I don't respond. Or friendship. Or even civility. The bracelet is not an attempt to buy my way back into your good graces. It's an acknowledgement, one that's long overdue, of your strength and capability. Thank you, I say finally, still wary but recognizing the effort this call must have required. The bracelet is beautiful. It should be worn, not kept. In a box. My grandmother would have approved of it going to someone who understands its meaning. Victoria clears her throat. I should let you get back to your celebration. Congratulations on the foundation launch. From what Edward tells me, it's quite an achievement. After she hangs up, I sit staring at the jade bracelet, turning it over in my hands. The stones are cool and smooth, their deep green color shifting subtly in the light. Is Victoria's gesture genuine? A calculated attempt to regain Edward's favor? Perhaps a bit of both. With Victoria, it's always difficult to separate sincerity from strategy. Yet something in her voice had sounded different, a note of resignation, perhaps even regret. The Victoria Hartwell who called me today is not the same woman who called me poor at that Thanksgiving table a year ago. Whether her transformation is genuine or merely pragmatic remains to be seen. I slip the bracelet onto my wrist, admiring how the jade catches the light. Whatever Victoria's motivations, the bracelet itself is beautiful, a piece of history. With its own story to tell. I can appreciate it without forgetting the past or naively trusting in a complete reformation of character. My phone buzzes again, a message from Edward Hartwell, extraordinary job today. Dinner next week to discuss the trust merger? My lawyers will prepare preliminary documents. I type a quick confirmation, then rise and walk to the window. From this height, I can see much of the city spread out before me, including, in the distance, the neighborhood where my grandfather's first tiny repair shop once stood. From those humble beginnings to this moment, a foundation bearing his name, poised to create opportunities for hundreds of promising students who might otherwise never get their chance. This, I realize, is what true wealth looks like, not the ability to purchase a mansion or wear designer clothes or host exclusive parties, but the power to effect meaningful change in the world. Victoria called me poor because she measured value in social status and material possessions. In doing so, she revealed the poverty of her own understanding. The next morning, I wake early at Oakwood Manor, drawn outside by the perfect spring weather. The gardens are in full bloom now, a riot of color and fragrance that transforms the property from merely impressive to truly magical. Walking the winding paths between carefully tended flower beds, I find myself at the small memorial garden I created in my grandfather's honor at the eastern edge of the property. A simple stone bench faces a flowering cherry tree, its branches heavy with delicate pink blossoms. Beneath it, a discreet plaque reads, "In memory of Robert Chen, 1942 to 2023, who taught me that true wealth lies in what we create, not what we possess." I sit on the bench, the jade bracelet cool against my skin in the morning air. From this vantage point, I can see the entirety of Oakwood Manor, the house that once represented Victoria Hartwell's dreams, now transformed into the physical embodiment of my own values and vision. When I purchased this property in a moment of righteous anger, I imagined it would feel like victory, a direct rebuke to Victoria's cruelty, a way to prove my worth in terms she would understand. But sitting here now, I realize the house itself was never the point. It was what the purchase represented, my refusal to accept Victoria's definition of my value. In the year since that decisive moment, Oakwood has become something far more significant than a symbol of revenge. It's become a gathering place for the Foundation's most important events, a historical landmark lovingly restored with Eliza's guidance, and most importantly, a true home where I can be fully myself without apology or explanation. My phone rings, Zoe calling with updates about today's foundation meetings. As I listen to her run through the agenda, I gaze up at the cherry blossoms swaying gently in the morning breeze. Life continues to unfold in unexpected ways, bringing challenges and opportunities one never could have anticipated when I sat at that Thanksgiving table a year ago, absorbing Victoria's casual cruelty. One more thing, Zoe says as she concludes her update. The mayor's office called. They want to recognize you with the city's humanitarian award at next month's civic gala. I smile at the irony. The same gala where, 3 years ago, Victoria had pointedly mentioned my non-designer shoes to anyone who would listen. Tell them I'd be honored, I reply. As I end the call, a sense of profound gratitude washes over me. Not for the recognition or the award, but for the journey that brought me here, from that painful Thanksgiving dinner to this peaceful garden, from allowing others to define my worth to defining it for myself. Victoria Hartwell called me poor at Thanksgiving, never realizing that true poverty is a poverty of vision, of purpose, of character. By that measure, I have always been wealthy beyond measure, rich in determination, in resilience, in the capacity to transform pain into purpose. And now, as the morning sun climbs higher in the sky, illuminating Oakwood Manor in golden light, I understand the most valuable lesson of all. The greatest power we possess is not the power to hurt those who have hurt us, but the power to create something meaningful from our experiences, both painful and joyful. That is the ultimate victory. That is the true meaning of wealth. 5 years after purchasing Oakwood Manor, I stand in the grand ballroom watching as 250 guests mingle beneath crystal chandeliers and elegant floral arrangements. The annual Chin Foundation Gala has become the most prestigious charitable event in the region, not because of social posturing or exclusivity, but because of the tangible impact our work has created in communities across the country. Ms. Chen, the first scholarship recipients are ready for their presentation, my events director whispers, gesturing toward a group of confident young professionals gathered near the stage, the inaugural class of Chen scholars, now college graduates embarking on promising careers. Thank you, Miguel. Let's begin in 5 minutes. As I make my way across the ballroom, stopping to greet donors and community partners, I catch a glimpse of myself in one of the ornate mirrors lining the walls. At 38, I look more self-assured than the woman who once endured Victoria Hartwell's cutting remarks at a Thanksgiving dinner table. My simple emerald gown is elegant but understated, the antique jade bracelet, now a personal talisman, gleaming at my wrist. Quite a triumph, Olivia, a familiar voice says behind me. I turn to find Edward Hartwell approaching, still spry at 87, his eyes sharp as ever. 5 years of the foundation, over 300 scholarships awarded, and technology centers in 42 underfunded schools. Robert Chen would be immensely proud. Thank you, Edward. I smile warmly at the man who has become both mentor and friend. Your guidance has been invaluable. Nonsense, he says with a dismissive wave. You had the vision. I merely provided some resources and opened a few doors. His modesty belies the truth of his contribution. The merger of his educational trust with the Chen Foundation 3 years ago had accelerated our impact exponentially, allowing us to expand from regional to national programs far sooner than I had dared hope. Have you seen the impact report? I ask, gesturing toward the elegant booklets displayed on a nearby table. Our first cohort of graduates has already filed 12 patents and founded 7 startups between them. Edward's eyes twinkle with satisfaction. Now that is a legacy worth building. He glances across the room. Victoria has arrived, by the way. With Charlotte. I follow his gaze to where Victoria Hartwell stands near the entrance, noticeably more subdued than the imperious woman who once ruled Westbrook Hill's social scene with an iron grip. At 68, she remains elegant, but there's a newfound restraint to her appearance, less ostentatious jewelry, a simpler hairstyle, designer clothing that whispers rather than shouts wealth. The years have brought an unexpected evolution to our relationship. Never friendship, too much water under that bridge, but a gradual shift from open hostility to a wary mutual respect. Victoria's transformation began with that jade bracelet and continued, haltingly but persistently, as she witnessed the growing impact of the foundation. 2 years ago, she had surprised everyone by volunteering for our mentorship program, working with teenage girls interested in art history and museum curation, fields where her knowledge and connections were genuinely valuable. Initially, I suspected ulterior motives, but watching her quiet dedication to her men's had gradually convinced me that at least some part of her change was sincere. I should go welcome them, I tell Edward. The presentation will begin soon. As I approach Victoria and Charlotte, I'm struck by the difference between this moment and our confrontation at Oakwood's gates 5 years earlier. Charlotte spots me first, her face lighting up with genuine warmth. Olivia. The ballroom looks incredible. She embraces me briefly, another change that would have been unthinkable in the past. Charlotte has undergone perhaps the most dramatic transformation of all the Hartwells, leaving behind her mother's shadow to build her own identity. Now 35, she runs a successful art gallery in the city and serves on the Foundation's Arts Education Committee. Thank you for coming, I reply, turning to include Victoria in my greeting. Both of you. Victoria nods, her expression composed. The Foundation's work continues to impress, she says, her tone carefully neutral. I was particularly interested in the expansion of the Rural Technology Initiative. We're seeing remarkable results in areas where students previously had no access to advanced computing resources, I confirm, keeping the conversation focused on the Foundation's work rather than our personal history. Victoria's gaze drops momentarily to the jade bracelet at my wrist, a flicker of something, recognition, perhaps even satisfaction, crossing her features. Your grandfather would be proud, she says quietly. Not just of the Foundation, but of how you've handled everything. Coming from Victoria, this is as close to an apology as I'm likely to ever receive. I accept it for what it is, not a complete reckoning with her past behavior, but an acknowledgement of my resilience. In the face of it. Thank you, I say simply. The first scholar presentation is about to begin. There are seats reserved for you near the front. As they move toward their seats, I feel a presence at my elbow and turn to find Eliza Peterson, now 83. But still elegant and sharp-witted. Quite a moment, she murmurs. Victoria Hartwell actually showing genuine respect. Wonders never cease. I smile at my friend and confidant. People can change, it seems. Even Victoria. Some more than others, Eliza replies, her gaze drifting to where Marcus has just entered the ballroom, looking uncomfortable in his tuxedo. After 2 failed marriages, both to women Victoria approved of, he now lives alone in a condo. Downtown, working in the family business but never quite living up to his potential. He asked about you, you know. Wanted to know if you ever expressed regret about the divorce. I follow her gaze to my ex-husband, noting the premature gray at his temples, the slight stoop to his shoulders that makes him appear older than his 40 years. For a moment, our eyes meet across the crowded room, and I feel nothing. No anger, no regret, no what-ifs. Just a calm acknowledgement of a chapter long closed. And what did you tell him? I ask Eliza. That you were too busy changing the world to waste time on regrets. She pats my arm affectionately. Now, I believe you have some remarkable young people waiting to take the stage. The scholar presentation is the highlight of the evening. 5 brilliant young innovators sharing the technologies they've developed with Foundation support. Their projects range from an affordable water filtration system for communities affected by industrial pollution to a neural interface that helps nonverbal children communicate more effectively. As I listen to their passionate explanations, their clear vision for how technology can address human needs, I feel a profound sense of fulfillment that no amount of social validation could ever provide. This, creating opportunities for talent to flourish regardless of background or circumstance, is the true purpose of wealth. Not acquisition or status, but possibility. Later, as the formal program concludes and guests begin to depart, I find myself alone for a moment on the terrace overlooking Oakwood's gardens, now famous for their seasonal beauty and historic restoration. The spring air is cool but pleasant, fragrant with blooming jasmine and cherry blossoms. May I join you? The voice is unexpected, Victoria Hartwell, holding 2 flutes of champagne. She offers one to me, a peace offering of sorts. I hesitate. Only briefly before accepting. Of course. We stand in silence for a moment, gazing out at the illuminated gardens that were once the focus of her coveted dream home. Finally, Victoria speaks, her voice uncharacteristically reflective. 5 years ago, when you bought this house, I was convinced you'd done it purely out of spite. She sips her champagne, not meeting my eyes. It took me a long time to understand. That it was never really about the house at all. No, I agree quietly. It wasn't. It was about being seen. Truly seen. Victoria's gaze remains fixed on the gardens. Something I never allowed when you were married to Marcus. The admission hangs in the air between us, more powerful for its simplicity. Not quite an apology, but an acknowledgement of the truth. What changed? I ask, genuinely curious about her evolution. Why the volunteer work with the Foundation? Why reach out after all that happened? Victoria considers the question, her expression thoughtful. Edward, partly. He forced me to confront some uncomfortable truths about the kind of person I'd become. She pauses. But mostly, it was watching what you built with your inheritance. I spent decades using my family's money to exclude people, to build walls. You used yours to create opportunities, to build bridges. She turns to face me directly. When I called you poor at that Thanksgiving dinner, I revealed my own poverty, of vision, of purpose, of basic human decency. The words echo my own thoughts so precisely that for a moment I wonder if I've misheard. But Victoria continues, her voice steady. I don't expect forgiveness, Olivia. Some behaviors can't be undone with apologies. But I wanted you to know that I recognize now what I was too blind to see then, that true wealth has very little to do with money and everything to do with how we choose to use the resources we're given. Before I can formulate a response to this unexpected moment of vulnerability, Victoria places her empty champagne flute on the stone balustrade and straightens her shoulders, resuming something of her former composure. Charlotte is waiting for me. Thank you for including us tonight. She hesitates, then adds, the jade bracelet suits you. It always did belong with someone who understood its true value. As Victoria walks away, I remain on the terrace, processing this surprising conclusion to a 5-year journey. When I bought Oakwood Manor in a moment of righteous anger, I never imagined that my act of defiance would eventually lead to Victoria Hartwell's own reckoning with her values. Yet here we are, not friends, certainly, but no longer enemies. Two women who have both, in our different ways, learned important lessons about the true nature of wealth and worth. The next morning, I wake early and make my way to my favorite spot in Oakwood's gardens, the small memorial to my grandfather that has expanded over the years into a peaceful meditation garden, complete with a burbling fountain and comfortable stone benches. The morning air is crisp, the rising sun casting long shadows across the dewy grass. In this quiet moment, I reflect on the journey that brought me here, from that humiliating Thanksgiving dinner to last night's triumphant gala, from a woman seeking validation to one secure in her own worth. My phone buzzes with an early message, Zoe, now my foundation's executive director, sending the preliminary fundraising total from last night's event, over $12 million, a new record. Enough to fund the next phase of our expansion. Technology education centers in rural communities across 3 additional states. As I read through the details, I notice movement at the edge of the garden. A young woman approaches hesitantly, one of our first scholarship recipients, now working as an engineer at a leading renewable energy company. Ms. Chen? I hope I'm not interrupting, she says. I wanted to thank you personally before I head to the airport. The foundation changed my life. Maya, I greet her warmly, gesturing for her to join me on the bench. The foundation provided opportunity, but you did the hard work. Your success is your own. She smiles, ducking her head slightly. My mother used to clean houses in this neighborhood when I was little. She would point out Oakwood Manor and tell me to dream big, but realistically. Maya looks up at the grand house behind us. She meant well, she didn't want me to be disappointed when certain doors remained closed to people like us. And now? I ask softly. Now I'm designing solar energy systems that will bring electricity to communities like the one where my grandparents still live in Guatemala. Her eyes shine with purpose. And I'm mentoring 3 girls from my old high school, showing them that those doors aren't just open, they're waiting to be walked through. This, I think as Maya continues sharing her plans, is the true victory, not buying Victoria's dream house, not even establishing a successful foundation, but witnessing the ripple effects as those we've helped begin to help others. The exponential impact of investing in human potential rather than material status. After Maya leaves, I remain in the garden, watching as Oakwood slowly comes to life around me. Staff arriving to clean up after the gala, gardeners tending to the spring flowers, the normal rhythms of a house that has transformed from a symbol of revenge into a center for positive change. My phone rings, Edward Hartwell calling with news about a potential corporate partnership for the foundation. As we discuss the details, I find myself smiling at how thoroughly my life has evolved from that moment 5 years ago when Victoria's cutting words sparked a transformation neither of us could have anticipated. Later that afternoon, I meet with the foundation's leadership team in Oakwood's converted carriage house, now a state-of-the-art meeting and education center. The discussion focuses on our 5-year strategic plan, expanding technology access to underserved communities, increasing scholarship opportunities, and developing new mentorship programs. The rural initiative is showing particularly strong results, our program director reports, displaying charts that track educational outcomes in communities where we've established technology centers. Test scores in STEM subjects have increased by an average of 32% in participating schools. And the first group of rural scholars? I ask, referring to the high school students who received special scholarships designed for students from agricultural communities. All 15 have completed their first year of college with GPAs above 3.5, she reports proudly. The mentorship component seems to be making a critical difference in their adjustment to university life. As the meeting continues, I reflect on how different this is from the life I might have led had I remained in the Hartwell orbit, attending meaningless charity lunches, enduring Victoria's subtle put-downs, watching Marcus continue to choose family approval over marital loyalty. Instead, I've built something meaningful, something that extends far beyond my own satisfaction or validation. The Chen Foundation has become a catalyst for opportunity, a vehicle for transforming lives that might otherwise have been limited by circumstance. After the meeting concludes, I walk through Oakwood's grand halls, now adorned with artwork created by students in our arts education programs alongside photographs documenting my grandfather's journey and the Foundation's impact. The house that once represented Victoria's aspirational fantasy has become a living testament to a different set of values: inclusion rather than exclusion, opportunity rather than privilege, purpose rather than status. In my home office, once the formal drawing room where Victoria had planned to host her exclusive soirees, I find a small package waiting on my desk. The return address shows it's from Maya, our scholarship recipient from this morning. Inside is a handcrafted journal with a simple note: "For the woman who taught me that our greatest wealth is the impact we create. Thank you for showing me what true richness looks like." I trace my fingers over the journal's handmade paper cover, thinking about Maya's journey from a child whose mother cleaned houses in this neighborhood to an accomplished engineer designing systems that will bring light to communities in darkness. About my own journey from seeking Victoria's approval to recognizing that her assessment of my worth had always been irrelevant. My phone rings, Eliza calling to check in after the gala. "I saw you speaking with Victoria on the terrace," she says without preamble. Civil conversation or declaration of continued hostilities? I laugh at her characteristic directness. Surprisingly civil. Almost profound, actually. I think she's genuinely changed. People can, Eliza agrees, when they're brave enough to confront their own failings. It's taken Victoria a long time to get there. Better late than never, I reply, surprised to find I actually mean it. The anger that once fueled my purchase of Oakwood has long since transformed into something more constructive, not forgiveness, exactly, but a recognition that Victoria's judgment of me was always more a reflection of her limitations than my value. That evening, I host a small dinner for the Foundation's scholarship committee in Oakwood's dining room, the same room where, in another life, Victoria had envisioned hosting elaborate dinners to showcase her social prominence. Instead, educators and community leaders gather around the table, discussing ways to identify promising students who might otherwise be overlooked by traditional merit scholarship programs. Standardized tests miss so much potential, argues Dr. Rivera, a former principal now leading our educational assessment initiatives. We need evaluation methods that recognize different types of intelligence and account for unequal access to test prep resources. The conversation is passionate, substantive, focused on creating meaningful change rather than maintaining social hierarchies. As I listen to these dedicated professionals debate the best ways to identify and nurture talent in overlooked communities, I feel a profound gratitude for the path that led me here, even the painful parts, the humiliations, the moments of doubt. When Victoria called me poor at that Thanksgiving dinner, she unwittingly set in motion a chain of events that would transform not just my life but hundreds of others. Her attempt to diminish me ultimately led to the creation of something far larger and more meaningful than either of us could have imagined. Later, as my guests depart and quietness settles over Oakwood Manor, I walk through the grand entrance hall, remembering the day I first stood there as owner, angry, hurt, determined to prove my worth in terms Victoria would understand. How limited that vision seems now, how small compared to what has actually unfolded. Outside, the spring night is clear and cool, stars visible above the gardens my grandfather would have loved. I think about the journey that brought me here, not just the purchase of Victoria's dream house, but the deeper journey from external validation to internal certainty, from reactivity to purposefulness, from proving my worth to creating genuine value. When Victoria called me poor, she was measuring wealth in the only terms she understood: money, status, social position. She couldn't see that true wealth lies in what we create, in the lives we touch, in the positive change we enable in the world. 5 years later, standing in the gardens of what was once her dream house, now transformed into a center for opportunity and growth, I understand the most valuable lesson of all: our greatest power lies not in responding to those who seek to diminish us, but in transcending their limited vision to create something authentic and meaningful from our own. That is the true alchemy of resilience, transforming pain into purpose, rejection into resolve, humiliation into humanity. In that transformation lies not just personal healing but the potential to create ripples of positive change that extend far beyond ourselves. Victoria Hartwell called me poor at Thanksgiving 5 years ago. In doing so, she revealed the poverty of her own understanding. And in my response, not just buying her dream house but ultimately building a foundation that changes lives, I discovered a richness of purpose that no insult could ever diminish and no mansion could ever contain. That is wealth beyond measure. That is victory in its truest form. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.